Hey everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. Alonso here with Matt and Christy, talking about another new streaming title, because streaming titles is that's all we got. The Quarry launches today. It was supposed to premiere at South by Southwest 2020, but nothing did. But here it is now for your renting and viewing pleasure. Matt's going to tell us all about it.
So The Quarry starts out, this is a pretty kind of tense and very spare movie. Shea Whigham is on screen for most of the movie. We first meet him kind of passed out on the side of the road. He gets picked up by a guy in a van, who we then a little bit later find out is a preacher on his way to a new job as a minister in a very, very, very tiny town in Texas called Bevel. After a brief conversation where the preacher kind of sees something's wrong with Shea Whigham's character and tries to get him confess, Whigham kills him and disposes of the body in a quarry and drives into town and takes over as the preacher and seems to kind of get away with it for a while. And then there's a robbery, a theft of the stuff that's in the preacher's van, Shea Whigham's van, a character who we never really get his name, and the local police chief played by...
Yeah, we do. His name is Valentine.
He's credited as the man, though, and he spends most of the movie...
Oh, Shea Whigham has no name. Shea Whigham has no name. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the guy who
no, I meant Shea Whigham.
I apologize.
No.
So, we meet the police chief played by Michael Shannon, who is, just trying to do his best in this town. This is set, it's pretty seemingly in the 80s, early 80s. You don't see cell phones, you don't see computers. I don't think the story would work in a more modern time. I think part of what this makes the story work is the lack of technology. But it's, like I said, it's kind of this really spare thriller that I kind of didn't know where it was going, and it's about getting away with things and identity and justice, and I kind of dug this. I think more than Christy and Alonso did. I thought that Whigham puts in a pretty solid performance here as a guy who's clearly struggling with guilt, but is almost as terse. It's actually really interesting to see Michael Shannon be the more loquacious person. Probably has more to say in this movie than anyone else. I kind of like this movie, but I think you guys did not.
Well, you know what? I think the pieces are there, right? Because you have actors who are willing to do really interesting, daring work and are willing to play unlikable and very flawed characters. And both Shea Whigham and Michael Shannon are that. Did you guys ever see Corpus Christi?
No, but it's the same plot, right?
It's kind of, yeah. So Corpus Christi is about
a banshee.
Corpus Christi is about this guy who gets out of prison and he in Poland, and he's sent to this small town to work, and he pretends to be a preacher. He hasn't killed anybody to get the gig. He just sort of pretends. He had been doing a little bit of preaching in prison and then pretends at the small town, and really is good at it and really connects with people and finds that it's his calling. And, again, that's set at a time where the internet would, of course, mean that there is no movie. That's the same case here. I didn't quite get as much of a sense of Shea Whigham's character's internal journey, because it's just a total coincidence that the guy he kills happens to be a preacher. There is no spiritual connection. He goes through the motions.
Also, a coincidence that he kills a Hispanic guy whose name is David Martin.
Right, David Martin could also just be David Martin, and he burns the guy's ID, so no one knows what he looks like. Right. You don't necessarily get the sense that he's having any kind of spiritual awakening or a sense of purpose. He's really stoic, and he and the film as a whole are almost too restrained to a fault and almost too stoic to a fault. And I don't need hand-holding, I don't need explanations, but I would have enjoyed a bit more of a glimmer of a character arc there.
Where did this guy come from? Yeah.
And where did he come from? And you get his explanation of how he ended up on that road in the beginning of the film, what his backstory is there. But he's having an impact on people in this small town in a way that is exciting for them and fulfilling for them. You know, in the very beginning, there are like 3 people coming to church, and eventually it's packed and he's performing a baptism, but you never get the sense of what those experiences do to change him, if at all. And that might have given the film a little more meaning, a little more depth. Michael Shannon's great in it. I kind of liked the vague, amorphous love affair he's having with Catalina Sandino Moreno, Academy Award nominee, who like lives next to the church and kind of like runs it and kind of keeps an eye on it, but really no one's keeping an eye on anybody. Everyone's just trying to survive in this small town.
Yeah, I believe me, I'm thrilled at any movie where Shea Whigham is number 1 on the call sheet. You know, like I love it when a character actor gets to sort of step into a starring role. I wish there were just more to this. Like when I found out that it was going to be a South by Southwest, I was like, that totally makes sense. It's that kind of Texas noir that is heavy on atmosphere, but not necessarily strong on plot or character. And, you know, Dave and I talked about it on Press Play, and he said the ghost of Flannery O'Connor is sort of hovering over this whole thing, being like, what are y'all even doing?
There's some stuff in this movie, like it sometimes made me think a little bit of what it was trying to do was a little bit like Lone Star, which is a much better, you know, the old McConaughey and
John Sayles,
John Sayles. It also, I think, you know, I'd be curious to read this book because this is a book from a South African writer.
Set in apartheid era South Africa, but here it's
and
white
I'd be
people
really
and
curious
Hispanics in Texas.
Interesting.
I'd be curious to read this book. I felt like this movie really, really, really wants to be a Cormac McCarthy story. Like, right? And I think that, you know, I almost wonder in the hands of a more experienced filmmaker who knew how to add, you know, put the pieces together better, you might have really, really had something. That being said, you know, I think the performances go a long way here for me. And especially I think this movie benefits from me having sat through some of the lesser films earlier in the week.
This is directed by Scott Teems, who has done some shorts, and his previous feature was That Evening Sun.
Oh, right.
Holbrook.
Yes, I remember that
Goggins.
one.
Anyway.
I don't know. Like, for example, I feel like this movie is trying to sort of examine the guilt of the Shea Whigham character, but for the most part, it seems to manifest itself in him doing like really stupid stuff that you would not do if you just killed somebody and were trying not to get caught. Like, first of all, that he's taking over this guy's identity, which you're right, there doesn't seem to be any real the fact that he's a preacher is not something that seems like it's a draw for him at first. Like if he were a plumber, he would have done the same thing. But then secondly, like to then report to leave the van unlocked when he was told not to, and then to report it as stolen, it's like, just confess already. You clearly are dying to get caught. Like, why are we wasting our time with this? Yeah. But beyond that, like, so if that is indeed his agenda, it plays more as just like faulty plotting than it does as like someone who is clearly like trying to, you know, like get himself in trouble by doing this dumb shit. Yeah,
there's some fun exchanges between Shea Whigham and Michael Shannon.
Oh, totally, yeah.
You know, and there's a bit of tension in there, and there's, you know, 2 great character actors. You know, there's excitement in just the 2 of them sharing the screen with each other and the kind of sparks that can fly from that. But again, like Michael Shannon is Michael Shannoning the shit out of it, and Shea Whigham the character is drawn in such a stoic, quiet way that like you wish there was more give and take in those moments.
Yeah, I almost wonder, I mean, like if I was to go back and try and fix this script or fix this movie, you almost want to see something that establishes that the man has come out of what we learn about him and what he's done and why he's on the run. If you had learned that all happened within the last 24 to 36 hours, still in a daze, I think that could go a long way towards explaining what he's doing.
Yeah.
But, you know, that would, I think, make a lot of sense, but that doesn't really, and even if like that doesn't get established so well.
Right. If we knew at the beginning what he had done and why he's on the run, that that would have added like an element of suspense and terror to it, knowing what he's capable of. Because you don't know. He could just be like down in his luck.
Sure.
Right. Or even when we do learn, find out that it all happened so recently that then it kind of puts some of the other stuff into perspective.
Yeah. Anyway, so again, the pieces are there. I'm saying
Script doctoring with breakfast all day.
We're so smart, you guys. We have a lot of ideas. I'm saying 6.
I said 5.5.
You said 6.6.
6.6. Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay. What, 7.5?
I like the.
You said 7.5, Matt. Yeah.
I do like the performances. You know, if you want a big plate of Shea Whigham, you're going to get it.
Our numbers is 6.7.
I wish that Shea Whigham was playing the chief of police so that we could call him Chief Whigham.
Chief Whigham. Oh, there we go. Nice.
That is your missed opportunity here.
Maybe that's why they were originally casting the opposite roles. They didn't want to have that hanging over the film.
Because Black Ass will make that joke.
Totally. Oh, in a heartbeat. No question. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Like this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on the social media at BeFastAllDay on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. It's keeping us going, and you keep us going, and we appreciate everybody who's been so generous and who is hopefully enjoying all the extra content, which right now is including our TV recaps of shows like Westworld and The Plot Against America and the brand new FX Hulu show Mrs. America. So go check that out, won't you? And in the meantime, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. We'll see you next time.